Listen carefully, because what you are about to hear is not just a medieval mystery, it's a story that has survived centuries, feeding on fear, belief, and human imagination. They say there exists a book so massive, so unnaturally precise, that people believe no human could have created it alone. A manuscript so dark in reputation that it earned the name, the Devil's Bible. Legend tells us that a condemned monk, facing a brutal execution, made a desperate decision. In a single night, he would create the greatest book ever written. And when he realized it was impossible, he did something unthinkable. He called upon Satan himself. But here's the unsettling part. When historians began to examine the Codex Gigas closely, the truth they uncovered was not supernatural. It was something far more disturbing. If you're drawn to mysteries that blur the line between myth and reality, make sure you subscribe to the Grim Tapes, because here, we don't just tell stories, we dissect them. Now, let's step into the shadow of one of history's most terrifying legends. The Codex Gigas is not just large. It is overwhelming. Imagine a book nearly 3 feet tall, weighing as much as a grown person's leg, bound in wooden boards and leather. When opened, its pages stretch wide like something meant to command attention, or perhaps fear. This was not a book you casually carried. It was not meant for quiet reading by candlelight. It was a presence. Something that dominated a room. And that alone is where the myth begins. In medieval times, anything beyond ordinary human capability was often attributed to divine or demonic forces. A manuscript of this scale, with such remarkable consistency, immediately raised questions no one at the time could answer. How could one person create something like this? And why would they? According to the legend, a monk often referred to as the Black Monk was sentenced to death for breaking monastic vows. His punishment was severe. He was to be sealed alive within a wall, left to die slowly in darkness. Desperate to escape this fate, he made an extraordinary promise. He told his superiors that he would create a book in a single night, a book that would contain all human knowledge and bring eternal glory to the monastery. They agreed. But as the night wore on, reality set in. No human could complete such a task in hours. Faced with certain death, the monk turned to something darker. He prayed, not to God, but to the devil. And in exchange for his soul, the devil helped him finish the manuscript. To honor this unholy pact, the monk included a full-page portrait of Satan inside the book. Not hidden. Not subtle. But displayed boldly, as if marking ownership. That image still exists today. A towering figure, crouched, with piercing eyes and an unsettling expression. It is not a quick sketch. It is detailed. Intentional. Almost reverent. For centuries, this image fueled the belief that the Codex Gigas was not just written by a man, but completed by something far beyond human. But here's where the myth begins to crack. When modern scholars examined the manuscript, they focused on something very specific, the handwriting. Across hundreds of pages, filled with text ranging from biblical scripture to medical knowledge, the calligraphy remains shockingly consistent. Every letter, every stroke, every spacing detail appears uniform. At first glance, this seems to support the legend. How could a human maintain such perfection across an entire lifetime of writing? But when analyzed scientifically, the conclusion becomes clear. It wasn't written in a single night. It was written by a single individual, over many years. Possibly decades. This changes everything. Because now, instead of a supernatural event, we are looking at something else entirely. Obsession. Isolation. Dedication taken to an extreme that borders on psychological endurance. Imagine the life of a monk in a medieval monastery. Silence. Routine. Limited human interaction. Days blending into nights. The same walls. The same rituals. The same thoughts. Now imagine dedicating your existence to writing one single book. Page after page. Line after line. No variation. No deviation. No mistakes. The level of discipline required is almost unimaginable. And that leads us to a more disturbing question. What does that kind of isolation do to the human mind? Because the Codex Gigas is not just a religious text. It includes a wide range of content, historical records, medical remedies, even exorcism formulas. It is as if the Creator was trying to compile everything known at the time into one place. Not for fame. Not for recognition. But for something deeper. Perhaps control. Or meaning. Or escape. And then there's the devil's portrait. Why include it at all? If this was simply a scholarly work, there would be no reason to dedicate an entire page to such a figure. Especially in a religious environment where such imagery could be considered dangerous. Some researchers suggest that the image reflects internal conflict. A manifestation of fear, guilt, or obsession. Others believe it was meant as a warning. But there is another possibility, one that is harder to dismiss. What if the devil in the Codex Gigas is not a symbol of an external force, but a reflection of the Creator himself? A representation of the darkness that can grow within a person when they are completely cut off from the world. Because isolation doesn't just silence the outside world. It amplifies the inside one. Thoughts become louder. Emotions become sharper. And over time, reality can begin to blur. This is not speculation. It is something we understand today through psychology. Extended isolation can lead to hallucinations, paranoia, and distorted perception. Now consider this. A monk, spending years alone, focused on a single monumental task. Writing endlessly. Thinking endlessly. Existing in near total silence. What kind of mental state would that create? Would the line between imagination and reality begin to fade? Would the idea of a devil shift from belief to experience? And if that happened, would the Creator even know the difference? This is where the real horror lies. Not in the idea of a supernatural deal, but in the possibility that the legend was born from something far more human. A mind pushed to its limits. A person consumed by their own creation. Because when people later discovered the Codex Gigas, they didn't see the years of labor behind it. They saw the result. And the result didn't make sense. So they created a story that did. A story that explained the impossible through something even more impossible. That is how myths are born. But the Codex Gigas doesn't just challenge medieval beliefs. It challenges us. Because even today, we are drawn to the same patterns. When something feels too extraordinary, too precise, too perfect, we look for explanations beyond reality. We want to believe there is something more. Something hidden. Something dark. And sometimes, we prefer the myth over the truth. Because the truth can be uncomfortable. The truth tells us that human beings are capable of incredible things. Not through magic. Not through supernatural intervention. But through obsession. Through isolation. Through sacrifice. And sometimes, through suffering. So the next time you hear about the Devil's Bible, ask yourself this. What is more terrifying? A monk who made a deal with the devil? Or a man who spent years alone, slowly losing himself, creating something so precise that it would be mistaken for the work of something inhuman? And if that kind of dedication exists, what else might humans be capable of? Before you leave, think about this. If you were placed in complete isolation, given one task, one purpose, and nothing else, how long would it take before your mind began to change? Would you stay grounded in reality? Or would you begin to create your own? And if you did, would you even realize it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the Codex Gigas is purely the result of human effort, or is there something about it that still doesn't add up? If you found this investigation intriguing, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the Grim Tapes for more deep dives into the world's darkest mysteries. Because some legends aren't just stories. They're reflections of what we fear most. And sometimes, what we're capable of becoming.